Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I've done multiple videos on this today, but I find it to be dramatically important. The United States President, previous reality show host Donald Trump, has pulled out of Iran a deal with multiple countries, international agreement, essentially the United States, I think it was China, Russia, UK, Germany, etc., etc. He pulls out of this. All of the signatories to the deal remain in the deal, including Iran itself, because all of them say that Iran has been abiding by the deals of, or the agreements of the deal. The international community agrees that Iran has been agreeing with the treaties of the deal and that this is a good agreement. Generals in the United States, including Mattis himself, says this is a good deal. The person who disagrees, a reality show host, Donald Trump, or previous reality show host that has experiences firing has-been celebrities and a real estate developer of failed properties, a 32-year-old playboy who gets his kicks murdering Yemenis and weaponizing disease in order to try to take down Yemen and still can't do it, take down one of the poorest countries, and Israel, a rogue regime, controller of an open-air ghetto. Some people, and Benjamin Netanyahu comes away from murdering civilians and murdering press in Palestine in order to give a batshit crazy speech that has been roundly denounced as lies. Benjamin Netanyahu is the same guy that sold the Iraq war on lies. He is the same guy that says Iran is always 2 to 3 years away from a nuclear strike, going back all the way to like 1992. He's a liar. He's a proven liar, especially within a standpoint of regime change. Donald Trump has hitched his star to those burning wagons, and he's pulled us out of the Iran deal. He's been roundly condemned by the other signatories and people around the world as they decry him breaking this deal. Now, one of the people who are whispering in Donald Trump's ear, Pompeo, the other one is John Bolton. I had a tip with AJ on Twitter today because I kind of made this point that they're not pulling out the deal for nothing. They're pulling out the deal because they want to target Iran. AJ's, oh, they don't have time. They're not in any position to attack Iran. That's utter nonsense. I mean, that's complete nonsense. That's nonsense on a scale that is breathtaking. It has nothing to do with whether or not the United States can attack Iran today. The question becomes, what are they building up to do? And pulling yourself out the treaty and screaming that the other guy is somehow breaking the treaty is looking for a pretext with which to attack Iran. They're looking for Russia and everything else. The foreign actors that you want to look at that's been influencing the president, Saudi Arabia and Israel. Well, people of policy. And one of the maniacs, the despicable maniacs, the bloodthirsty maniac that is in Donald Trump's steed, that is whispering in Donald Trump's ear, is John Bolton. Backing up my point that this has more to do with this idea of positioning us in this antagonistic way with this idea of potential regime change is John Bolton himself. John Bolton in 2017 made this statement that the United States policy should be the overthrow of the Iranian government. Openly, loudmouth. We should overthrow. That should be the stated United States policy. Regime change. Fuck the Constitution. Who needs that? Regime change. Fuck the toll that is going to take in that region of the world. Fuck the fact that Bolton has always been wrong. He's never been right about a thing in his life. If John Bolton came out and said it was a blue day, you better check. That's where John Bolton is from the standpoint of getting shit right. And yet, because he's always the guy who wants to invade something, it doesn't necessarily matter how much he's wrong or how much he fucks up or how much trauma he causes around the world. Here he is again. We need to attack it. Well, that's the guy that Trump appointed. That's the guy who Trump is listening to. And let's take a look at the guy who Trump appointed, calling for regime change in Iran as the stated policy of the United States.
I have said for over 10 years since coming to these events that the declared policy of the United States of America should be the overthrow of the mullah's regime in Tehran. The behavior and the objectives of the regime are not going to change, and therefore the only solution is to change the regime itself. And that's why before 2019, we here will celebrate in Tehran for the first time in at least 8 years that I've been coming to this event, I can say that we have a president of the United States who is completely and totally opposed to the regime in Tehran. The changed circumstances in the United States, I think throughout Europe and here today, are so important. There is a viable opposition to the rule of the Ayatollahs, and that opposition is centered in this room today.
Understanding what's taking place, imagine for the moment that one of the leaders in Iran comes out saying that the United States government is full of hacks and the country needs to be destroyed, the country needs to be attacked, there needs to be some kind of war. Heads would explode. You have the guy who's whispering in the president's ear saying that the stated policy of the United States needs to be to bash, destroy, and to take out the government of another country. That is amazing. And do it by 2019. This president, the president that I'm whispering in the ear of, that guy has stated that he is completely opposed to the regime that's there now. And by 2019, there will be a regime change. For those of you who are saying, oh, dude, this has nothing to do with war, you have not been paying attention. And for those of you who believe that Trump is doing this for shits and giggles, you're not paying attention. For those of you who believe that he's going to get some kind of better deal by pulling out of the agreement, you're not paying attention. The other leaders of Europe are not on board with this nonsense. They've already approved that the deal is intact, meaning Iran has been living up to the agreements, which means that the United States is the outlier in this. Coming up with some pretext to attack is not like attacking Iraq. You don't have the same backing that you had, not to mention you have no credibility at all, especially with this cartoon that's leading the pact. This is a different reality. John Bolton doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm curious, and the only question becomes, what does Europe do? What does Europe do? Does Europe stand aside and allow Iraq to be attacked in the same way? Iran to be attacked in the same way that Iraq was attacked. He is proclaiming that the policy of the United States is regime change. And that regime change will take place by 2019. That is amazing. That is amazing. But nevertheless, that guy has the ear of the president of the United States. We're $22 trillion in debt. A lot of that came from the war with Iraq. That's if you take out all of the 4,000 American lives that were stolen or that were taken. If you take out the million Iraqis that were murdered. If you take out all of this calamity, I think there were like 1,000 Brits or some to that effect. You're still stuck with the economic toll of spending this much money. Do you realize you have 800 bases across the world? Those are only the bases that you know. You don't even know the number of black sites that you have across the world. 70% of the world is full of U.S. military. Do you understand? We've attacked Iran before. We've attacked them before. We've taken their government out because we didn't necessarily like this idea of them controlling their own oil as a resource. We put in a dictator, a brutal dictator. The only reason Ayatollah is in there right now is because we overthrew the government. They took it back with a theocrat, and that theocrat has been in office ever since. But let's not forget the fact that the inception of it was us overthrowing their government. And now we're in this odd and ridiculous scenario, just like we were 18 years ago. Kind of similar to like we were 18 years ago, where the United States is telling lies. It is using Israel as somewhat of a mouthpiece also, Benjamin Netanyahu, for lies. And it has an idiot president who's just as willing to go along with this. John Bolton is telling you strategy. And he is the man who's whispering in the ear of Trump. And he is saying that by 2019, you will have regime change in Iran. When people say stuff, I think you should listen to them. Especially when they're whispering in the ear of the president. And he's saying it full-throated. This is amazing. So, I'll leave it. Julian Corbett, thank you very much for posting that clip. That is amazing. That is amazing. It's not that we're shocked by the clip. It's more so it is good to hear it full-throated, honest. We're trying to overthrow that government. We don't care about our constitution. They're not really a threat to us, but fuck it. We want world domination. It doesn't matter the chaos that we cause in all of these parts of the world. We're still in Iraq 18 years after that war, and we're $22 trillion in debt. But fuck all. But fuck all. I'll leave it. I'm not gonna bitch and moan. I've had 2 videos on this. Yes, I have a bee in my bonnet about this. And I gotta be honest, I'm slightly annoyed with HG on this. And again, this annoyance is all me. Has nothing to do with him. He can have whatever position he wants. This is not a... I have no tether. I have no tug on him. I guess my annoyance is maybe more so with me. It's my appraisal of the individual and my appraisal of what's taking place and how that person would perceive those events. I just always thought that in cases of war, that we would be allies. Not so much. He's threatening to attack Iran. And all of these war hawks are pointing to Iran. It's like they were using missile tubes. They were using missile tubes. It's like Israel has fucking nuclear missiles and they're getting billions of dollars. And whether you realize it or not, that place is a tender pot. And you're hitting that tender pot, which can explode into a much larger conflict extraordinarily fast. With the experience of a former reality show host as the President of the United States, making the choices and decisions. Alright. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can support the Patreon. Apparently, regime change in Iran by 2019, at least according to John Bolton, the maniac, depraved human being who has the ear of the President of the United States. Thanks, guys.